Good morning, students. Welcome back to your class 12 English class. So, I really hope that you are enjoying this chapter, the last lesson. I have given you the outline yesterday from the starting till end. So, today we are going to read it line by line, paragraph wise paragraph, and we will try to understand what the author is trying to say in that chapter, right? So, you need to have the book with you, Flamingo, and from here. Then we will start with the page number 2. And before I really want to start with it, that we have discussed about M. Hamel, right? So I told you that M stands for master, and in French word we call it monsieur. Yes, in French we call it monsieur. So it's Monsieur Hamel, or we can say the M. Hamel or Master Hamel also. So I'm reading for you. So listen it and write down the meanings with it side by side. It says, I started for school very late that morning and was in great dread of a scolding, especially because M. Hamel had said that he would caution us on participles. Now, the first expression which has been used here is in great dread of. Now, scolding, you know the meaning? Yes. Great dread of means he was having that fear, immense fear. He's saying that, the narrator is saying that he was already late for the school and he was feeling afraid that as he will reach to the school, M. Hamel will take a test on participles as we have discussed. And he did not know the first word about them and he has not prepared about it. For a moment, I thought of running away and spending the door out of doors. So he thought that he should stay outside only and should spend the day out. Why? Because of three temptations which we have discussed. First, it was so warm, so bright. The birds were chirping at the edge of the woods, and in the open field back of the sawmill, the Prussian soldiers were drilling. So these three temptations were there which were stopping him not to go to school. It was all much more tempting than the rule for participles. So you can underline these. But I had the strength to resist and hurried off to school. But still, he rushed back to the school. When I passed the town hall, there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. For the last 2 years, you need to underline these lines. For the last 2 years, all our bad news had come from there. The lost battles, the draft, the order of the commanding officer, and I thought to myself without stopping, what can be the matter now? Now, when he crossed the town hall area, there was a bulletin board and a huge crowd was standing there. And from the last 2 years, the bad news were always take on that bulletin board, like the lost battles or the commanding officer had given the order. So today, even he was thinking, what's the matter now? He wanted to stop, but he was not able to. Why? Because he was already late for the school. Then, as I hurried by as fast as I could, the blacksmith watcher. Now, when he was rushing, so the blacksmith was there, uh, who was there with his apprentice. Apprentice means the intern of blacksmith, who was reading the bulletin, called after me, don't go so fast, Bob. You will get to your school in plenty of time. Now, Bob here means when you're calling a boy, but in a very aggressive or rude tone. So he was reading the bulletin board, that blacksmith, and he told to that Franz, don't go so fast. You're having a plenty of time to go. But he was already late, so he said it in the sarcasm. I thought he was making fun of me and reached M. Hamel's little garden all out of breath. So finally he reached there. M. Hamel's little garden all out of breath here means like he reached to the M. Hamel's place where he was. Usually, when school began, there was a great bustle. Now, great bustle means a lot of activity. So, he's telling that generally how the school looks like, which could be heard out in the street. So, means there is an activity which is going on, which everyone can hear. The opening and closing of desk, lessons repeated in unison. Now, unison means together. This we have discussed earlier also. That generally the school atmosphere is like this. Only lot of activities there. Children are repeating the lesson. There's the opening and closing of this. The movement is there. With our hands over our ears to understand better, and the teacher's great ruler rapping on the table, and the teacher is moving here and there with the ruler in his or her hand. But it was all so still. But on that day, that moment, everything was in still position. I had counted on the commotion to get to my desk. I had counted on means he was relying on. He was relying on the commotion. Commotion here means disturbance. He was thinking when all the activities were going on, when the noisy activities will be there, I would directly go to my classroom and I will sit there so that nobody can see me or nobody can observe me. But of course, that day everything has to be as quiet as Sunday morning. But unfortunately for him, on that day it seemed that Sunday morning there was a still quietness everywhere and everyone can observe him. You need to underline this also. Through the window, I saw my classmates already in their places, and M. Hamel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler under his arm. I had to open the door and go in before everybody. You can imagine how blushed and how frightened I was. Now, from the window only, he noticed that the class has already started. M. Hamel was moving here and there with the terrible iron ruler in his hand, and he was feeling afraid that he need to take the permission. Everyone will notice him, and he was feeling blushed, means he was embarrassed, and he was feeling afraid also. But nothing happened. M. Hamel saw me and said very kindly, "Go to your place quickly, little Franz. We were beginning without you." And surprisingly for little Franz, M. Hamel did not scold him at all. Although he called him inside very in a very polite tone, and he mentioned that we were about to start without you only. I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk. Not till then, when I had got a little over my fright. Now, as soon as he sat down, he was still in his embarrassing and afraid tone, but still, what he noticed now, did I see that our teacher had on his beautiful green coat? Now you need to underline from here. It's about M. Hamel's dress. Beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt, and a little black silk cap, all embroidered, that he never wore except on inspection and prize days. Now he noticed about M. Hamel's attire that he was wearing the black silk cap, embroidered shirt, green coat, which he generally used to wear these kinds of clothes on a very special days, not on the normal days. Besides, the whole school scene was strange and solemn. So school was looking like very strange and sudden, in a very, it seemed to him very formal to him, as it's written. Solemn here means formal to him in a very different manner. But the thing that surprised me most was to see on the back benches that were always empty. If you remember, we discussed yesterday, those back benches which usually used to be vacant were filled up on that day by the villagers only. So it was a surprising thing for him. The village people sitting quietly like ourselves. So the students were also sitting there, as well as the village people were also sitting. Old Horser. Now Horser is a farmer only. With his three-cornered hat, the former mayor, the former postmaster, and several other besides. A number of old villagers were sitting there. Everybody looked sad. So and there was a sad gesture on their face. And Horser had brought an old primer. Old primer is the old book. Thumbed at the edges. Now, thumbed at the edges means which were folded from the corners. And he held it open on his knees with his great spectacles lying across the pages. So the old horse was having the old book which with the specs on that. While I